Hey friends, Graham here from the recordingrevolution.com, and today let's talk about how to pick the best audio interface for your home studio. Now, when it comes to gear, this could be the most important decision you make for a couple of reasons I'll explain in a second. And I want to make a preface before we jump into the 3 parameters you need to look for and a couple other things to watch out for. And the preface is that today, there is no more debate in my mind about quality of audio interfaces. There will always be different price points, and there will always be premium products with premium components made by premium companies, and there'll be more affordable solutions made by really reputable companies but come in way, way cheaper. But inside those interfaces are amazing sounding preamps and converters, and if you disagree, then you just haven't gotten good enough on the budget stuff. I'm hearing records being made on very affordable interfaces that rival stuff that I've heard out of big studios because the song is better, because the artist is more talented, and because they use the equipment well and put it together in a beautiful way. The gear that is made today in the budget realm sounds 10 times better in my mind, and I've said it again, than the more expensive interfaces and converters I used 10, 15 years ago in big studios. So the technology has just come so far, proving yet again we are living in the most revolutionary, most incredible time ever to be making music. So it does not matter what you spend on an interface, you can get professional results. Bank on it. Now let's talk about the 3 things you need to look for and how to know how to pick your audio interface. Now the number 1 thing is really, really important. It is what kind of connection does your computer have? So audio interfaces these days have different types of computer connections, whether it's USB. These days, a lot of times it's 3.0. Firewire is phasing out, but still some Firewire interfaces and some computers still have that connection, whether it's 400 or Firewire 800. Or Thunderbolt is very, very popular now, both on traditionally on Macs, but now PCs. You can get Thunderbolt cards or PCI cards on the PC that have Thunderbolt adapters, things like that. So what you need to look at first is what computer do you have? And what connections does it have? If it has Thunderbolt, that allows you to have a Thunderbolt interface. If it has USB, then you can use a USB interface. If you have both, you can choose, but you have to start with what your computer has, right? So then when you go shopping for interface, you start to sort it by connection type: USB, Firewire, Thunderbolt, PCI, etc. Number 2 thing on the checklist for you is number of simultaneous inputs. Now, if you've seen my video on how to record a band in a home studio, then you've learned about the concept of overdubbing. You don't need 20 inputs to record 20 tracks or 20 people in your band if you can record them one at a time. But it's important to know how many inputs you will need at any given time to record at once. So, for example, if you're just a singer-songwriter and you're just going to play guitar and sing at the same time, or play keyboard and sing at the same time, or just do one of the other, you only need 2 inputs to do that, right? 2 microphone preamps, one for your vocal, one for your guitar, or one for the microphone and your piano, one for the guitar, or a line input for your keyboard and your vocal. So 2 inputs simultaneous is all you would need. And that is a great legitimate starting point because you can overdub later. Now, if however you want to record multi-track drums, maybe you want 4 mics on the drum kit, a kick, snare, and overheads, you're gonna need 4 microphone preamps in that audio interface. If you need 8 microphones on your drum kit, or you want to record a drum kit and a guitar player at the same time, you just sort of see where you're going with it. How many inputs, if you can imagine, in the near future will you want to record at the same time? And you'll need to look for that in an interface. Now, something to keep in mind here is that some audio interfaces will say 8 inputs, but only have 4 microphone preamps built in. The other 4 inputs are line level inputs if you have keyboards or DJ equipment, or if you have other microphone preamps that are external and you can run the outputs to those. That will not help you if you don't have the extra preamps, or you really need 8 microphone preamps for 8 microphones. So make sure you not only check the channel count, but the number of preamps in there. That way you know how many microphones you can plug right into the interface. Now, the 3rd thing you want to think about is potential future expandability. All of our needs will likely change and grow over time. If you think there is a chance that right now you're doing singer-songwriter stuff and you only need 2 inputs, but you think in a year or 2 or 3, I'll probably be recording more inputs at once. It might be worth considering an interface that has what you need now, but some expandability via an ADAT input on the back that allows you to put more mic pre's into it with one cable, or line inputs that are unused for now, but you can get some extra mic pre's later and run into it. If your audio interface only has 2 analog inputs, period, then you can never record more than 2 things at a time, no matter how much nice gear you buy down the road. It just physically only has 2 converters inside, 2 channels of conversion. So it's important to think ahead maybe. Some interfaces will only have 2 mic pre's, but they have expandability in the back. It's hard to forecast what your needs are in the future, and I get that. And you don't want to always buy for future needs. You need to buy for what you need now. But it's worth considering, do I think I will need expandability in the future? It might be worth buying something that's a little bit more pricey that gives you that expandability in the future. Otherwise, you're going to have to sell that interface and get a whole new one down the road. Now, a couple of things that you need to pay attention to when buying interfaces that I think people skip is, one, what is the experience from other users with the software that comes with that interface? For example, most interfaces have a software component that is controlling maybe your low latency headphone mix on the interface, but you control it via software, and it's kind of in between your interface and your DAW or your recording software. It's like another piece of mini software, like a little mixer or something. Sometimes they have built-in effects. Sometimes it just controls the headphone routing. Sometimes it just controls your monitor mix. Either way, what are people saying about that software? Because you're going to have to use that software in every session. Now, it's not the same as your DAW. You don't have to spend forever with it, but it's going to be part of your workflow. And if it is a confusing piece of software, it will drive you nuts and it'll slow you down in the middle of a session. I've used a couple of interfaces over the years whose software component, sort of software mixer built in, the software control center, whatever it is, was very cumbersome, not well thought out, very full featured. You could do a lot with it, but not usable in a real session. And it was confusing and it always slowed me down. I really want to know, if I haven't used it personally, what other people say about that software component. So do a little digging in the reviews or ask a friend if they've used it. What do they think about sort of the in-between software that the interface comes with? Is it usable? Is it easy to use? Does it get in the way? Something that people don't think about, but it will really plague you or aid you in your recording sessions. Now, another thing I want you to pay attention to is how many headphone outputs does this thing have? It blows my mind that interfaces are still made today, some that are still made today with 1 headphone jack. This makes absolutely 0 sense if you ever intend to record anybody other than yourself. If you're just going to record yourself, that's all you need. You plug your headphones into that front jack, create your headphone mix, and then you're good to go. But if you will ever record even someone else in your band or a friend of yours where you want to listen to the mix as the engineer for that moment, and they need to listen to a mix that's slightly different to perform, then without that second headphone jack, you're going to have to find an extra pair of outputs on the back, if there is an extra pair, not all interfaces do have an extra pair, and route it to a headphone amp, or create a mono mix out of the output jacks and run it into something that converts it to head. It just becomes a cumbersome way to work. In some interfaces, that's what they give you, is just 1 headphone jack, and it makes no sense. But there are plenty of interfaces that have 2 independently controlled headphone amps on the front, and that's very, very practical. You're going to get stuck if you don't have those 2. So I would recommend an interface that has 2 of those. Like I've said before, I personally think that the audio interface is the most important gear choice that you make, because it's what you're going to build your whole studio around. You can always swap out mics, you can always swap out speakers, you can always swap out software and DAW and plugins. But that is the hub with which everything flows through, and it needs to meet all the needs that you have. It needs to work with your computer. It needs to work with your setup. So it's worth doing a little bit of research and digging to find an interface that's good for you. Now, to make things easier for you, I have put together some of my personal recommendations on audio interfaces in my home studio gear guide. Just go to the link here below called Studio Gear Guide. Go to studiogearguide.com. It's a simple PDF you can download. This will help you, where I basically looked at every kind of piece of gear you need in the home studio, whether it's microphones, audio interfaces, software, headphones, studio monitors, and I've listed my personal recommendations in different budgets. So I don't know what you can afford to spend, but if you've figured out what computer connection you have, how many inputs you need, and if you need any future expandability, then the only other question is how much can you afford to spend, and you buy an interface in that range. Well, I've saved you the trouble by saying if you can afford to spend this amount, here are the top 3 interfaces I would recommend and why. And I've links to them so you can get current pricing and all that kind of stuff. This is all gear that I either personally own or have used, or I like the companies and I trust the products they make. So go to studiogearguide.com. My little gift to you, I think it'll help save you some trouble and narrow down at least the choices of interfaces for you, and you can do some digging and see if it's gonna be a good fit for you. Now remember, your audio interface is so important. You don't wanna be swapping this out every year. You wanna rock this thing for many, many years, get a lot of life out of it. It'll save you money, and it takes time to learn your gear. So it's an important decision. Do your research, use the gear guide, buy an interface, and then make great music with it. Don't watch the commercials or don't read the ads for a new interface that comes out next year or the newest model. You don't need it. Use the one you have. If it still suits your needs, then get better at making records with that interface. Remember, the interface is not the thing. It's not the difference maker. It's you, your talent, and your ability to do this craft, and that takes time to learn, but that's why I'm here. So hopefully that helps you pick and choose the perfect audio interface for your home studio. Leave a comment below this video and let me know what audio interface you have or you use, if you already have one, why you like it. Maybe it can be a good recommendation for someone else as well. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the videos if they help you. I'll see you on another video soon.